Happy March. It's Anthony and Tucker with Land Title. We just wanted to bring you all the data from last month in February. There's a lot of cool stuff going on, so let's get right into it because I'm shocked and surprised at how well the market's going, actually.
It's actually really impressive. We look at our under contracts right now, and month over month, we're 23% up. Year over year, we're only down 11%, which is not bad, right? We're where we thought
Under
buyers
contract
it was going to be.
Could have been 30%.
It really could have been.
Right?
So this is
It was 30% down for all of third quarter, and in fact, even worse in December. So the fact that we really saw this upswing and we're seeing nearly where we were last year with interest rates half of what they are today, I think this is a really, really strong sign for just the strength of the Colorado market because, let's be real, this is not happening everywhere.
No. And this is the number one thing is real estate is local. So when you're working with folks, make sure you tell them stop listening to CNN and Fox and the big networks. Start listening to local news about what's happening in our market, and that would be us.
Exactly. We're the local news. All right. So here's one thing that I think you guys do need to pay a little bit of attention to. And let me get myself out of the way here so you can see. The one thing that to easily scare people with is that percentage year over year change, right? Like look at Louisville's perfect example. There's 18 homes on the market. It had a 500% increase in active units. That's ridiculous. So people in the big media, they play on a lot of that kind of stuff, right? But what we want to talk about is just what the reality of that means, right? 18 homes in Louisville on the market means that
that's nothing.
Maybe 18 homes actually sell this month, right? Because there is quite a bit of demand in those areas. It's like Niwot at 13 homes, 225% increase. Great. So we went from a week of inventory to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So that being said, I really think it's important to read into those percentage changes a lot. You're going to see some extreme numbers right now. It doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, right? We have 539 homes on the market. That's barely enough to actually have frictional inventory, and we're not in a market like we were last year. So lots of good stuff happening here. This is a comfortable amount of inventory in the market right now. It's totally a seller's market still, so your buyers are really going to have to watch that. And you can see here in our month supply of inventory, we're only at a month and a half.
We're just not seeing as many people sell right now because it's hard to get out of that interest rate. And so when we're looking at this, 1.5 months of inventory, okay, 6 weeks. Okay, last year we were at 2 weeks. So it's not a huge swing when you really think about it. Now, your percent change looks massive. But honestly, it's really not that big at all. We went from 0 inventory to a small amount of inventory. Hey, thanks. Now my face looks huge.
How great you look.
I know. Thanks. So much brain power this fat guy. But you really can see this is still a seller's market, right? Because 4 months in the front range is what we can kind of consider balance. We haven't hit that since 2019. And this is really a good sign for us that, the market is moving forward really well and it's still having good turnover.
Exactly. So this is days in MLS. Days in MLS is that measure of active to under contract time. Now, we are kind of leading into doing some weekly stuff and really kind of looking at some other pulses on the market. So this can be a little misleading, but it's an average of the market, right? So the average is going to trend down from January through basically, that May, June timeframe. It should look like a horseshoe in a normal market. The big difference is what we have to understand here is what's going to happen to interest rates and how's that going to affect the market. So days in MLS, if it hits that 20 to 30 range this year, I really wouldn't be that surprised. But like those weekly averages for new listings coming on the market, some of those are going under contract in 14 days on average. Right?
It's all about how it's
really different.
Really, what the buzz is around it because we're seeing.
And by market, right? Look at the markets here. City of Boulder is the fastest market out there right now. We haven't seen that in a long time. And the reason we're seeing is because there's not a lot of people listing the houses. The houses that are out there, they're probably priced appropriately. And then you get to places like Superior, who's really struggled since the fires, right? Their market has really slowed down. And they're at 67 days, so it's taking a long time to go under contract because there's a lot of inventory. So we are definitely telling the tales of different markets and by different price points. So maybe we should get into price points.
Yeah, I think so too.
Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. All right, so price points, actives, and under contract.
This is what's huge for your borrowers out there and your buyers. Looking at these price bands really helps them understand where's the activity. And what we can see is the top end of the market is still doing really, really well. Keep those jumbo loans available because they're still being used. And I know people are looking to still leverage, which is interesting with where rates are, but those folks, they're affluent for a reason. Got to trust the system. They want a new house, they're going to get it. But it's a great sign to see that we're really keeping up with last year in our super luxury. But we have a lot more inventory than we did last year as well. So it's another good sign that these high-end shoppers have more choices, because last year they were moving really fast for the price points that they're at.
They really were. And I got a couple of people asking, let's go to a couple slides over and then we can talk a little bit about this. I've been getting a lot of people asking, like, why is the 3+ million market have days on market of 20 days, but it has almost 8 months of inventory, right? And I think the big thing about that is the homes that are selling are the ones that probably were taken off the market, put back on at a lower price, or they were buttoned up when they came on, or it's a fresh new look on that market, right? You know, people in the ultra luxury market are like sitting and waiting, and they're looking for something specific, or they don't just make rational decisions with $5 million usually, right? Or 10 million, like we've seen some sales this year. So the ultra luxury market is definitely very unique, and I would expect to see those rise quite a bit, right? Because eventually some of these homes that have been on the market for 200 or 300 days are going to sell, and then we'll see those swing. But the other thing to pay attention to is the lower price points of the market, the lower end of the market. This is where interest rates are affecting people the most, but there's no inventory. Look at 5 to 599. We still have less than a month of inventory. We basically have 3 weeks of inventory there, and it's turning over in 42 days on average. So it's moving really rapidly. That's going to continue to speed up. And honestly, I don't see the inventory situation down there getting that much better this year. Slightly, maybe, but not
people
much.
keep buying and improving homes, that really pushes them into that next price band with some renovations that happened during COVID. So we're going to continue to see a shrinking of that, under 600,000, under 500,000, both condos, and townhouses and single-family homes, where it's really hard to find some under 500,000. And Boulder, the city of Boulder, let alone Boulder County, has a detached. And it's just going to continue to get harder and harder, and the competition is going to drive that up. So we're going to really kind of see, even more speed in that lower end of the market because of what rates kind of push people.
Yeah, and I think we should really talk about a couple of the differences. So let's switch over to the average sold price, and let's talk about it by detached and unattached, because there are really 2 big distinctions between the markets, right? Detached market across Boulder County and really across Colorado is not doing nearly as well as the attached market. It's largely due to the cost of money. But the one thing you need to talk with people about is you're going to see year-over-year numbers like minus $13,000 in average sales price. Well, we're not really comparing apples to apples, but over the last 12 months, we still saw almost 5.5%, or actually 5.5% appreciation, right, in the detached market. So we did see the tide rise a little bit, right? That's a healthy amount of appreciation, but those year-over-year numbers aren't actually showing.
Where if you're going to talk to folks about, hey, am I buying at a bad time? Is prices, are they dropping? Go ahead and look at this TTM change, right? That's the last 1 to 12 months versus 13 to 24 months, where it's last year versus 2 years ago kind of averaged out. So it's an average of averages. And we love it because it really kind of takes out some of the seasonality, the different product types, and really averages through where the actual value of the homes are moving on the average. And this is where we can see it. Look at certain areas. Lafayette.
Look at Lafayette, Louisville, and Superior. They're a perfect example of how a natural disaster can affect an area and just how migration affects prices.
Yeah, look at Superior, look at Louisville, super low. Then look at Lafayette. They made a lot of ground here. And then you look in Boulder, look at Walmart, still sitting a little lower on 3.8%. But that's still a good sign. We're not seeing these numbers decrease. If we saw these decrease, that would be a cause for a panic. Them being flat, them slightly increasing, and then you look at certain places really popping off, that's a good sign. So this is a great slide to show folks who are nervous about buying, like buying at the right time, should I wait? This right here explains real estate in a nutshell.
Yeah, and honestly, look at this. We're at $1.1 million average sales price in Boulder County right now for a detached single-family home. This is not a cheap market to live in. So we're just not going to have every buyer here, right? A lot of your buyers that are a little more price sensitive are forced into the attached market, right? And here we are. So let's look at it.
You can really see what's happened since kind of COVID restrictions got lifted here in late 2021 into 2022. And we've seen it just absolutely explode.
Well, it's been all over the board because of some sales in Boulder. So a lot of those spikes, you need to kind of, take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, the Q2, Q3 spikes in 2020 was a large luxury development for townhouses. But that's obviously going to be impacting our inventory. So we need to account for that. Then we look at our February numbers, and that's just doing great. And this is where you can really see.
It was abysmal, right? So those are stuff that went under contract in December. And honestly, there just wasn't very much out there. It wasn't very much going on. So these numbers are going to be skewed a little bit month to month, which is why we really like to look at that TTM change. because it really gives you a really good example. And look at attached, 15% increase in average sales price in the attached market, largely due to the fact that detached is so expensive, right? So if you can't afford a detached single family home, but you want to live in Boulder County, what do? You find a product type that you can afford. We don't build condos, so we have a lot of townhouses.
Yeah.
Right?
Or we don't have any newer condos. We have older condos, which are now selling, which were in the threes, they're now in the fours. It's just really starting to progress, especially as people had all this time during COVID. The inventory also got upgraded. We have nicer inventory than we did before because people were spending so much time in their homes. So we can continue to see attached really keep growing because it's more affordable and you can get something nice and with the location you want. And what do we know about real estate? It's all about location.
Look at the city of Boulder, up 22.7%. Probably led the country.
You can buy a townhouse in Boulder or you can buy a single family in the county. Which choice do you want? And that's where that location's playing in.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about total volume. I know as lenders, you guys really like to kind of keep a pulse on really what the market's going to be doing. And I think the one thing to remember is the first half of the year, right, all the way now through June, you're going to see basically a major reduction in total volume from last year. Now, that being said, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. The one thing that I think is worth looking at is look how short third quarter or fourth quarter was last year. If we could kind of maybe hit an even amount from that July, August, September timeframe, and then we're going to way exceed the end of the year. So if we're down by, let's call it 10% this year over last year, I would say that that's us doing really well, right? The year-over-year current sales numbers showed down 26%,
and our year
because December was ugly.
Yeah,
right?
But in our year to date, it's at 30, so we're going to continue to see that shrink hopefully and kind of decrease and kind of get closer to the positive numbers, but we're not ever going to hit zero again. We're never going to get back to last year. Last year,
we really are going to exceed the last quarter, and I think we're going to make up a lot of ground there. So if you're laying that groundwork, yeah, exactly. If you're laying the groundwork right now, you're going to see those benefits take place. But we're going to have a pretty vibrant spring market from what we can see. So we should have good numbers. We're just not going to have last year's numbers.
Right. And this is really, we're hoping it will kind of carry through this summertime as well. A lot of people got those saved up trips out of the way, and inflation and costs and airlines and gas, all those costs have gone up drastically in the last year. So we might see lower summer travel, which will mean more people in town to shop.
Great for the real estate market.
Yeah.
All right, so this is our sold price. The list price is the last one Tucker and I wanted to go through with you, but it's really important to look at this and remind your buyers that we're not going to have a spring like last year, right? We keep hearing people say, well, we're seeing bidding wars again. Okay, well, a bidding war is very different than what we saw in the last 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Those spring markets where people were just throwing everything they had at home because they panicked and wanted to get in one, they're acting emotional, right? That's just not the way the markets normally work. So we're not going to see these giant swings like we saw in 21 or 22. But here we are at 98% listed sale price. It's getting better, right? It will every month, probably now through May. And we're going to peak somewhere around 100, 101% in a lot of these markets. So slightly over asking price, some bidding wars, but crappy properties will get prices like 98%, right?
Yeah.
Or 95%.
And remember, this doesn't include concessions, 2-1 buy downs. So
Which you're not going to see on the super nice projects, but you might see them on the bad ones.
You're going to see it on places that need to sell.
Or places that have been on the market for 30 or 45 days. I think there's really some understanding in here to see, okay, if we are really tight on our down payment, or we have to have a buy down, where do we shop? Who do we look at, right? It's a competitive market still. So we can really have some of those conversations. There is some inventory sitting, right? It may not be the best inventory, but if your buyer needs to be into something and they need help, there is a product available for them, which is actually the nicest part about us having way more inventory in the market.
Well, and remind your folks, just because they listed at, let's say, 900,000, doesn't mean you can't write an offer for 850. Right. So you have that option. So, remind folks, you can write the offer for what it works, for what you can actually lend for, and then you can kind of back it into what the price is. And then if someone wants to take it, they'll take it. If not, you just keep firing those shots. But there's nothing wrong with having your agent that you're working with write those contracts, because you never know when that that seller's going to say, yes, you're right, I need to get out. We have other things that we need to do. So just write those offers, get them out there, generate that activity.
And I would say especially in detached, right? Because if you go over here to the attached market, it's already at 99.3%. Are we going to see some bidding wars? Sure, but are we going to go anywhere near where we've been? No. We're going to probably be 101% again, maybe a little bit more than that. We were at like 103% in 2021, and if you remember, everyone was scared of their own shadow in 2021, and they didn't want to be around anyone else. So that was just a function of no inventory in the market. Again, we have some inventory in attached, we just don't have enough. And honestly, it's just a pinched price. So if you can talk those guys into getting in a detached home where if they can afford it, right? Because there is so much less demand there in the lower price ranges. Now, you get into that 1 million plus, the 1.5 plus, whole different ball of wax in a very different market. So it's kind of the tale of two markets, right? I mean, it's kind of the story we've been telling for a while. But yeah, thank you for joining us today. It's been 15 minutes. Hopefully you're still paying attention and we're helpful for you. But
Hope you had a great St. Patty's, and we guys wish you well.
take care. We'll see you next month.